Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds, where I like to collect together all the different things that I've purchased over the past week, present it to you, give you a little bit of background on it, maybe turn you on to something new, but if nothing else, remind you of some cool stuff you've got in your own collections so we can all enjoy our music listening experience. But I got 34 things this particular week. Of course, that's because I've been on vacation, so I hit up record stores. Also, record store day. That didn't help. That just added more stuff into what it was I was looking for. So a lot of cool things. 10 of those are things that you will have not seen from any of the other videos I've already posted having to do with this stuff. So do stick around for that. We're going to get into it here in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date. Really cool things just like this with new music finds. So as I normally like to do, kick off with new releases, but there was actually no new releases that came out, probably because of Record Store Day, which Friday the 29th, same day, there was some stuff that did drop, just not for me. And in the end of the day, the things I picked up were 6 things from Record Store Day. So the first one I want to show you guys, because even if you've watched the Record Store Day video, you didn't get to see this part of it here. So first thing I'm going to show you guys is the Jane's Addiction white label copy of their 2-song single, 2 new songs that they had recorded. And there was I don't know if it was a 1 in 4 or what the chances were, but some of these were randomly signed on the inside. And guess what? I got one. So let me open this up and show you guys what we got going on here. So nowhere on here does it say Jane's Addiction. You had to know that this symbol here was that. The sticker on the outside didn't even show it. But as you slide the thing out, oh, guess it's not this side. Even more of a reveal then, right? There we go. Dave Navarro signed mine. So I was very excited. I just reached into the stack from the middle, pulled one out. And even though I debated for a while, I said, you know what? I'm just going to stay with the first one I grabbed. I'm not going to put it back and try for other ones or any other rationale that I might have had. I'm just going to go with it, and I'm glad I did. And I don't know how many, because maybe all the ones that Sound Exchange got were that way. But I had heard that it was a 1 in 4 shot, and by the time I was grabbing it, there were 4 left. So I figured I actually had a real shot at this. I pulled one out, and I lucked out. Now, somebody I know, though, got one, and they got 3 signatures, which I didn't even know was happening. I thought it was literally only one member would sign randomly one of the records. But I guess in some instances, those same ones turned up with the other guys and they signed them. I don't know if any of the albums actually had all 4 signatures, but it was one of those things where you might get one of them, one artist on it. And so I got the guitar player, Dave Navarro. So that was very cool. I'm very excited about that. That just was like icing on the cake. It was the cherry on top. I'd already had a great day with the rest of the stuff that I had gotten. And I wasn't even planning on getting that. That was not one of the things that was on my list. I sort of warmed up to it and got very excited about it. And it just kind of felt like one of those things to do. Like, you know, you buy the scratch off just to take a chance. And so I did that and I lucked out. All right. One that you guys have heard me talking about for the past few weeks or so was this. The U2, How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb, the Shadow album that was only available on CD in their box set, this being a standalone release. And they have said repeatedly there will not be any other standalone releases on vinyl, on CD, or anything. If you want it, you're buying the box set, unless you got it here as part of Record Store Day. So kind of bummed to hear that because I want a CD, standalone CD copy of it. But yeah, either way, I got the vinyl one. So very glad to get that. 10 songs that were not part of the original album getting released like this. And Van Halen, live in Dallas, 1991. So this, as I read on here, and I didn't, look at this closely when I was buying it, it says it was a legendary free show. So I didn't even know that, but I had been wondering why it was shorter than, say, Right Here, Right Now, which we already have a Sammy Hagar live album from this tour that is so classic. In fact, in April, that came out as a remastered edition and people went nuts for it. This had already been part of the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge box set that was released, but again, no standalone copy of this, and so, and at that time, no vinyl either. So making its vinyl debut and standalone copy release, but like everything, I still want a CD copy of these things. So there's that. This was one I didn't think I was going to get because it was so limited. Duff McKagan live at Easy Street. It had 1,500 copies. And another cool thing that I didn't know about it until I got it was that it was going to be hand numbered. And so I got number 869 of the 1,500. There are 10 tracks. One of them is an introduction, so 9 songs on this, focusing all on Duff McKagan's solo material. But I really dig Duff McKagan. I have since his debut solo album, and I've gone back and grabbed the other different projects and things that he did back in the day and loved that stuff. So whether he's doing his punk rock sound, his hard rock stuff like with GNR and some of his solo material like that, or he's even doing some of the other more acoustic and country leaning sounding stuff that he's been doing in recent years. For whatever reason, man, I absolutely love it. Okay, and another thing that I got, the Yes Fragile Outtakes release that has 8 tracks on it. So another one like the Van Halen Live, this being pulled from the box set that was a CD edition, now getting a standalone release and first time on vinyl because of that. So we get things like Roundabout, an early rough mix, All Fighters Pass, which is a Steven Wilson mix. Then we get We Have Heaven, full version Steven Wilson mix. And it just goes on from there. But a lot of different versions, alternates and different mixes and early takes and things like that. And I just like getting that stuff, the stuff that is different than the album. You know, I've heard the album so many times, meaning Fragile, and I know that stuff inside and out. But when I can get something that is a little alternate and different, and I can hear some nuances that I haven't heard before, that makes it a lot of fun. And the only CD that I picked up as part of Record Store Day was the Ultravox Lament release, their 1984 album. This one being a 2 CD set, a little hard to see because everything is white on white for this. But you get the original album with a Steven Wilson stereo remix, but you also get the instrumental versions of all of those songs. And for me, in and of itself, again, getting something like that that isn't part of the regular album, both an alternate mix and instrumental, make getting things like this really worthwhile. So all in all, I had a great Record Store Day. I hope you guys saw the video that I shot and filmed at Sound Exchange of my experience and what others were going through and all that excitement and everything. Those are just lots of fun. It happens twice a year. And yeah, I could have more of those. They're so good. Okay, I'm going to show you some stuff that you haven't seen yet from any of the videos floating around. I picked this up, a T.Rex box called 1973, and it's titled What Happened to the Teenage Dream? And so it focuses on that year, 1973. We get the Tanks album and Zinc Alloy albums in here. Then you get a bunch of extra 45 single releases, bonus cuts, things like that on there. Then you get something called Private Numbers, where they break down the Tank era and the Zinc Alloy era, and you get a whole bunch of other related recordings and things. In fact, there's 25 tracks like that. But it's the CD4 that's in here that really intrigued me, and it's called, CD4 in here is titled Look to Your Soul. And one of the things on here is the Sister Pat Hall album, in which Mark Bolan wrote and recorded a soul album with Sister Pat Hall fronting. It was her solo album, but he wrote, produced, created the whole thing. So it sounds like a soulful version of a T.Rex album with a different vocalist. And it's a really, really good, very cool Did eventually get, I think, a vinyl release a few years back, but it was an unreleased album that didn't happen at the time. At least that's what I understand it to be. But cool box set with a lift top, comes off, and you get a book and all kinds of stuff that's in here. So that was a lot of fun. And being on a T.Rex kick, I picked up a couple of the alternate edition albums. So this one here, which is called Rabbit Fighter, is the album The Slider, doing an alternate edition of it. So they take the album and you get a little new artwork and stuff, but then you get all alternate editions of the song, outtakes, things like that. And then I got Dandy in the Underworld. This one is titled Prince of Players. And again, you get that slightly varied artwork and everything, and it gets released under the different name. And then you get all the alternate editions of stuff. So again, just a different way to hear these classic albums that we know and love so well, but it's a new take on them. And Nimrod. This one I passed up at the time and got this here. So this was really cool. 3 CDs in this one, so not the 6 disc like the other. 25th anniversary deluxe edition of it. You get the original album, you get demos, and you get live stuff in here. So that was a lot of fun. And then these things, again, stuff you hadn't seen yet. So I picked up NXS Underneath the Colors, their second studio album. I don't know, I just didn't have it. It was one of those things that I was sitting back, I was enjoying some NXS stuff, and then I went looking for this album, couldn't find it, and realized, wait a minute, I don't think I own that album. And so I was able to pick this up, a remastered edition of it, and once giving it the listen, realized, in fact, I definitely did not have this. I do not know this album. So I think it's one of those ones that I was simply waiting to find a kind of quote original release of it on CD, not one of these remastered ones. I tend to like the original packaging better, and I've just never come across it. I eventually found the debut album. Those debut and this one were the 2 albums that I didn't have for the longest time. And I finally just said, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. I want some new NXS, so I got that. And then I kind of got on a 7 Mary 3 kick, and I have the first 3 albums, the independent debut release, and then the actual major label debut and its follow-up, Rock Crown. But I didn't have Orange Avenue or this one here, The Economy of Sound, or Dislocation. So when I had the final album, or last released, I should say, which I think was like 2007, 2008 or something. So it's been some time, but nice to go to Sound Exchange, and I found these 2 used and this one new. So instant completion to my 7 Mary 3 collection, which was a lot of fun to do. And I don't know why, again, that I had never picked these up. I love the major label debut album that has Cumbersome, Water's Edge, stuff like that. It was their platinum selling album. And I have to say, Rock Crown has never moved me the way that that album did. So probably why I never went beyond it, never really giving these a chance. But you know, I threw on the headphones, gave it a listen, and each of the first tracks on those 3 albums just jumped out at me, and in the right frame of mind, I guess, for that. And then while I have this on a box set, I didn't have the edited down 2-disc best of version, REM at the BBC. As I said, 2-disc best of from the box set that's 5, 6 CDs or maybe even more kind of thing. And I just decided, I was on a big REM kick as well this past week. And I just decided it was finally time to get this and listen to it this way than from the box set, which I don't always pull that out. It's a little bit too much to dive into. And so this was kind of nice to just listen to a selections of sort of stuff. And it's something I've eyed since the box set first came out with this. And I'm trying to see the year on the back side, but it's been some time and I just never picked it up. And it was the right time to finally say, you know what, I've been wanting this for a really long time. Just buy it, put it in the collection, but at least this way I can enjoy it as a standalone release right now. All right, and then the other stuff was my trip to Princeton Records that I did at the beginning of my vacation, and I walked away with a bunch of stuff, and I've got 20 of those items that are here, and so we'll blow through this fairly quickly, since if you've watched that video, you would already know what it is. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of this stuff that ended up moving me to a degree that I didn't expect it to. So this one here, I was on a whole alternative rock thing, but I bought this just to put into the collection, and yet I fell in love with it. Motorhead, the Best of Volume 2, and it's just, I guess, the song selection, the way that they're ordered on here. I put this on just to give a listen to the first couple tracks, check it out, and I ended up listening to it all the way through. And then I've done that so many times since getting it. It was just perfect for me. But the other thing is, I think these songs on here were remixed, and they've got more of an 80s, late 80s, early 90s production sound to it that is not on the original ones. When I listen to this here, there's something very different about its mix than the original tracks. As a whole, every song that's on here, despite coming from many different albums in different years, all sounds like it's from the same album. And that, I think, is why I ended up liking this so much. And I couldn't find any information on that, but I'd be curious to know if anyone out there actually knows whether or not this received a remix as a whole when it came out. And I think, I want to say it was like 93, 94, whether it did or it did not, to make it sound like it was more produced by the major label stuff that Motorhead was putting out at that point. Let me know. The Ozzy Osbourne Japanese release Best of Oz album. It was only $5.99. I still can't believe it. I love finding cool things like this. That was a great one. I had bought this, the Donnas Get Skin Tight. It's an earlier album. It's not their major label stuff. I tend to like the major label stuff better. I didn't actually have anything from their independent records days. I think Lookout Records is it. And so I was just buying this to put in the collection because I didn't have it. When I popped it on, again, it was just the perfect sound that I was looking for at that time. And it has a raw sort of punk pop feel to it, like Girls' School, Lita Ford, Runaways, stuff like that. Just turned out to be great. So now I'm definitely looking for the first two albums that I don't have by that band. And I gave these a try here. Mean Mistreater and Toxical, both of these newer metal bands, but having that sort of new wave of British heavy metal sound to them, even though they're Canadian bands, but they've got that very late 70s, early 80s metal sound. This one turns out to have a female fronting the group, which I couldn't really tell or note when I was doing some information on it. And so once I found that out, it just made it even better as a release. It's very hard to come by good female-fronted, classic-sounding metal, but this one here. So check out Mean Mistreater, Razor Wire, if that interests you, but just some more classic-sounding metal done by newer band Toxical. And this release here, Under the Southern Lights. So two really great ones. Better Than Ezra. The album, How Does Your Garden Grow? Still a little funky for me. I said I was buying it to give it a try because it was my least favorite of them, but there's some stuff on here that did stand out to me more that I liked. The Wallflowers Collected, a best of. Just wanted that one for the collection. This was cool. A Semisonic Pleasure EP, which when you look at the back of this, looks like it has 7 tracks. But there's actually 3 additional things on here that go in between some of these things. So when it's on, it's really 10 tracks, like a full-length album, just at an EP length. But that was a lot of fun. Didn't even know this existed. 1995 release. So that was cool, fine. Took a chance on this one. Tal Bachman, self-titled release. I did have 2. I thought this was his only album, but I looked up and I found out a little more info. Did have 2 albums, has the big track from 1999, She's So High, and I knew that song, and that song had always been in my head, but for whatever reason, nothing else on here had ever clicked with me, but it did click this go round, and I ended up loving the album. Played that through a number of times, had fun with it. Got the Only Brother Kane album. I didn't have their second album. I had the first and the third. Got this, put that into the collection. Found this EP by Midnight Oil. This was Species to Species. Still don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but 4-song EP that turned out to be very good. One more of their EPs for me to add into the collection and finish things off. Midnight Oil, a live album, live at Old Lion, Adelaide, 1982. Sound engineer Mark Woods. Wasn't sure if this was official or not. It is, in fact, official release. Black Box Recordings. It did really well as a digital thing. They released it to raise money for roadies and the people that support the musicians on the road, sound engineers and all that sort of stuff. And did so well, and there was such a call for it, they put it out on CD. The sound on it is phenomenal. I ended up really loving it, and you guys know I don't like live albums, but this one here sounded perfect to me. This is a live album I can enjoy repeatedly, and we'll pull that out. So glad to get a hold of that. I love when something goes under the wire from a favorite band of mine. Didn't even know about that. If I had known about it, I would have picked that up when it first came out. And then I added in, for a used price, I think of only $3.99, a 2-CD best of from Midnight Oil. And again, just cool way to get it into the collection for very little. And yet I've been eyeing it since it came out. I just didn't want to spend the $20 to get it because I already own everything that was on it. There is nothing unreleased or rare about any of the tracks. They're all from the albums, but it does cover everything, including the EP, so you get a little bit of something from every one of their releases. All right, Paul McCartney, Tug of War. I wanted this one for the original mix, whereas what I have is a remixed edition. That was the reissue that came out, had a remix of the album. So I finally have the original mix of it. And again, just another way for me to hear this. Plus it's in a jewel case, and I love jewel cases. James Gang is the Atco Records release for Bang, official release. If you watched my video from Princeton, I mentioned that I've always felt like the copy that I had was a bootleg. I'm not entirely sure. I bought it off of eBay, and it was all a little grainy, and there was a little bit of questionability about the whole thing, even though it was a silver CD and all of that, but it never played quite right. So now I've got this. I know it's an original copy on CD, and so that was really great. Rod Argent from the band Argent, The Zombies, his solo album from '88 called Red House. This turned out to be an interesting thing. It's very orchestrated sounding, not quite as rock as I would have had hoped it to be, but you know, to get that, to have that in the collection, I'm glad to at least get that. Godly Cream and Freeze Frame, the two guys from, what band is it that these guys come from? 10cc. And never really liked the early 10cc with them, and I have to say that this is a very odd sounding album, but I'm intrigued by it. And there's a couple tracks, including the title track on here, that I really liked. So it might be one of those things that'll grow on me in years. I don't really know. But I recognize the album cover. I wanted to have it in the collection, so I did. And I now have that. Urban Verbs. This was the expensive one that I got that was $24.99. I decided to take the chance on it because it's a Wounded Bird Records release. These things are very hard to come by. 1980 release. It's a new wave sounding. Turned out to be great. Very glad that I went ahead and shelled the money out on that. And the last thing that I picked up was the Thompson Twins, Into the Gap. I think this is their 1984 album, has Hold Me Now. It was their biggest hit. 3-disc version of it. I come to find out there was a 2-disc one already released. So celebrating its 40th anniversary. But apparently there was, I don't know if it was a 20th or a 30th anniversary already available. But now you've got this one here. And so all in all, very cool stuff that I found. And if you hear those crazy noises in the background, that is my cat Noodle digging in his litter. What are you going to do, right? Cats will be cats. But yeah, man, I had a really good time at Record Store Day. I had a great time my week off, finding some cool stuff and just taking all that time to enjoy music the way that I did. So that's what I got. I hope it turned you on to something new, and or like I said, at a minimum, it shows you or reminds you something that's in your collection, because that's always the fun when you go, wait a minute, I've got something and I haven't listened to it in a very long time, and you pull it out and it is the perfect thing at the perfect time. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.